friends. Last week we talked about how strumming patterns don't really matter at all or apply to uke, and this week we're going to talk about why strumming patterns are very important, why you should always be asking about them. In last week's lesson we broke down really what most people are talking about when they talk about learning strumming patterns, and that's truly learning about the rhythm of a song. When strumming patterns become important is once we already understand the rhythm and are playing the song, we're able to use different strumming patterns to coax different textures out of our instrument. We should think of strumming more akin to how a violinist uses his bow. We have legato and marcato markings and slurs and down bows and up bows. And with our fingers, we can create a whole host of different textures on the instrument. To illustrate this, I'm going to show you a bit of Ernest Caillet's piece, Loke, Lani. Ernest Caillet was one of the first real teachers and virtuosos of the ukulele and came up with a lot of very interesting techniques. And this song, Loke, Lani, is a very simple tune harmonically that has three separate sections that all use three different rhythms with three very distinct strumming patterns, and it allows us to really separate the rhythm from the strumming. So let's get started. Now the A section of this tune is probably both the most interesting and the toughest part of the entire song, which you might not think by looking at the notation. Rhythmically, this is very simplistic. We have a quarter note, two eighth notes, and then another quarter note. So our rhythm is 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. And this rhythm continues throughout. And if we saw this notation independent of the song, we would likely think to just strum down, down, up, down, 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 up, down. But as I mentioned before, Caillet explains very specific instructions for how he wants this strummed. And the stroke here is up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, which seems backwards to us, because generally strumming with our first finger, that would mean that we come up with the pad of our finger, then down with the nail of our finger, giving us an unaccented first beat, which is quite odd in a triple meter. When we hear something in 3/4, we instinctively want to hear 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But this is where the specific strumming comes in. And what we need to do is play what Caillet calls the all the finger stroke, which really has two separate parts to it. On beat 1 for this up strum, we're not going to come up with our first finger as we generally would. We're going to come up with the nail of our thumb, but we're going to space our first finger about 1.5 or 2 inches behind the thumb. And what this is going to do is create a chorused effect, or the illusion of a dual chorused instrument, something like a mandolin, or two tones identical at the same time, just slightly time delayed. So we keep this like this, and as we strum through, you can hear that you're hitting the string twice. And we want to make sure that this encompasses really the whole first beat. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And that gives us the accent that we want. And on top of that, dragging the first finger behind it makes it texturally very interesting. And this helps the melody of the song pop out. Now on beat 2 is the second part of the all the finger stroke, the all the fingers part. On beat 2, we're going to come down with the pinky, then the ring finger, middle finger, first finger. Really a slight Rosciato stroke, much like we'd have in flamenco. And we'll bring the wrist through and just let all of the fingers go through the strings. This is also called the Hawaiian fan strum at some times. But when we put these two together, we have this beautiful cascading sound. Listen to this. We'll take the rhythm out of the equation and just do the all the finger stroke. So we have this continuous sort of sound going through. Two different textural sounds in 2 beats. And then for the rest of it, we're just going to strum up, down with our index finger. These are our accompaniment notes. These are really just playing the chords and we're letting the melody ring out. So if you put your pinky on the 7th fret of your A string, and the rest is all just a C major chord, we have an E on top, the 3rd, the whole measure is going to sound something like this. This takes quite a while to get smoothly, so practice this stroke independently of the piece and get used to just this almost backwards wrist motion that you have to use, and really focus on the different textures that you're pulling out of the instrument. Now the B section presents us with both a new rhythm and a new strumming pattern. Now this is likely a rhythm you've seen before. It's a quarter note, an eighth note triplet, and then another quarter note. If you've been playing uke for a while, you've probably learned the triple stroke before, and it's what we generally call the thumb roll triple, or where we come down with our first finger, follow through with our thumb, and then up with the first finger. But here Kai specifically notates that he wants us to go down, down, up, all with our index finger here. And the reason that we have that is that gives us an unaccented beat on beat 3, which should not be accented. By doing that, we come up with the pad of our first finger, giving us a softer sound, where if we were playing the thumb roll triple, we would generally come through with the nail of our first finger, really accentuating that last beat. So the rhythm would be something like this. We'll put down an F major chord for this measure, and it'll sound like this. Now, this might be a little bit awkward too if you're used to the thumb roll triple, which really contains the same wrist motion as a standard down and up stroke. So you'll find that you really have to speed up your motion a little bit as you do this. Now, also on beat 1 of this section, Kai comes down with the second part of the all the finger stroke, that Hawaiian fan strum. And again, this accents the melody, which generally changes on beat 1 of each measure. So the full strum for the B section sounds a little bit something like this. As we continue through that and change the chords, we get all of these textural changes that we wouldn't have with just a standard strumming pattern that we might instinctively use on this section. The final section, the C section of the tune, gives us probably our most logical strumming. This is pretty much exactly as you would think. You'll see that we have a run of straight eighth notes, so 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and we'll do this with what Kai calls the drill stroke, or just a down and up strum. So we want to keep this nice and even. But again, we need to accent beat 1 in this 3/4 pattern to make it sound natural. So again, we're going to use the Hawaiian fan strum to make that happen. So again, I'm not strumming through harder when I do the fan strum. It's just the textural change that gives it that different feeling. Now, over on my Patreon, I have the full score for this song if you would like to play it. It's a great crash course into some of the early Hawaiian techniques, but also ways to coax new sounds out of your instrument. And that's part of the joy of playing ukulele, is that by playing with our fingers, we really have this huge sonic palette to play with by utilizing our entire hand to pull different sounds out of the instrument. I'll see y'all next week.